Okay, everyone. I'm Gary Fair, AVP Research and Graduate Studies, and today we're here to talk about preparing your sabbatical application. I'm going to get my presentation up online. It's been updated just a few days ago for 2024 applications. If you go to the research webpage and then look for under resources, if you look under resources for faculty, you'll see a sabbatical page, and there right now you'll see this year's sabbatical handbook and last year's video, and we'll replace that video in about a week from today. So the handbook is really useful, and I'll try and go through this. Feel free to ask questions as we're going through it. I may or may not see your hand, so don't be shy about just jumping in. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to have some brief introductions. What I'd like is each one of you just to give me your name and the department you're from, and that might help guide some of my discussions. So and again, I can't see everyone, so if you could just maybe appoint the next person. Or no, I've got it now. Okay, I'll start with Erwin, just because you're next to me on my screen.
My name is Erwin Cohn. I'm in the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice.
Thank you. Michelle.
Hi, my name is Michelle Flam, and I'm in the English department.
Mike.
Hey, hi everyone. Mike Corman, sociologist in School of Social Culture, Media, and Society. There it is.
Excellent. Yeah, big title sometimes.
Yeah.
Mo.
Hi, I'm Mo Kali Razavi, practical nursing program and also head department of HCA.
Great, thank you. Roseanne.
Roseanne Timbrell, Child Family Youth Studies, current department head.
Excellent. Zena.
Hi, I'm Zena Lee. I'm the director in the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice.
Tetsuro.
Hi, I'm Tetsuro, School of Creative Arts.
Fantastic. Chris.
Chris Campbell, Adult Education. Nice to see you. Or not see you, actually. We're not seeing you.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Russell.
Hi, my name is Russell Campbell. I am in the School of Computing.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Jerry.
Jerry Gannon, School of Business.
Okay, and Mayan.
Hi, I'm Mayan. I'm with School of Communication.
Perfect. And Amir.
Hi, I'm Amir Harshbaba, School of Business.
Sorry, what school is that? I didn't quite catch it.
Business.
Oh, perfect. Thanks very much. Okay, so I'm going to just go through, since you talk about what a strong sabbatical application is, and the reason I say that is, unlike most of our internal grant programs, this is not competitive. This is very much about peer review committee taking a look at what you've proposed. They say, here's some weaknesses or some strengths. We'd like to have some questions. And my role is to be the liaison to make your proposal approved. So part of my goal is to make sure that you're not over-promising, because I don't want you coming back more tired than when you started. But I also want to help you get through that review process. We'll talk about writing the project summary, purpose, and goal statement, and why that's important. And it really does set the stage for the peer review committee, so they know where you're going with your proposal. And then we'll talk about some of the other details of the project proposal. So this year, under the new collective agreement, there's 2 new changes. One, we've got 2 more streams, and that's streams 7 and 8. We can talk a little bit about what the difference is between these different streams, but it's also detailed in the handbook that's on the web page. So a research project is the most common stream that people choose, and that's anything that has a defined research methodology. Scholarly activity project it might not have a defined research methodology, but it could be, say, writing a book. It could be producing a documentary or something like that. A teaching and learning project. So this would be great if, you know, this is wanting to improve some teaching or pedagogy, a curriculum development project, and we're not talking about developing a single course, but rather perhaps redesigning a program or writing a whole new program. 5 is a course or a training program so that you're getting new training that you would use in your teaching or your research. Lots of people have chosen this option, especially, say, in areas of the trades where new technology comes online and they need to get up to speed. A good example is someone is working on the autonomous vehicles and someone else is working on how to service and the electric vehicles. Some people like to go or like to complete some requirements for a new credential, such as a PhD or some other certificate. And then we've got 2 Indigenous streams, Indigenous training streams, one for Indigenous faculty and one for non-Indigenous faculty. And this is brand new to me as well as to UFE. One other change that came in the collective agreement this year is the option for people to take a 4-month sabbatical, a 1-semester sabbatical, instead of a 2-semester or 1-year sabbatical. So the thing to note about a 4-month sabbatical is that it's at the end of 4 months, it's still 7 years of service before you're eligible for another sabbatical. It doesn't reduce the time period between sabbaticals, but we've had quite a few questions over the years, and hence the creation of this option by people who say, I only want a 4-month sabbatical because of what I want to do. So option is there. So a strong sabbatical application. Make sure your description is clear. I like
Gary.
Hey, hi Jerry. Yeah.
Do you want us to ask questions as we go?
Feel free. Yes.
Ask as we go, or save it to the end?
No, you can ask questions now.
Right. Can you combine 2 together?
Generally not, but that I hate to say never. You'd have to have a really, like, you don't want to do a research project and a credential. It should be able to see it as a single project, but there might be 2 components for the whole project.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. I like to tease the chemists a little bit. Really, I'm just in awe because it's like they have their own language. And so it's just very technical language specific to their discipline. And if you're a chemist, it all makes perfect sense. But for me, it takes a little more work, and also for many members of our review committee. So all of our disciplines have our own jargon, and you just need to remember that the review committee may not have anyone from your discipline on the committee. So therefore, you need to be able to write it in a way that most academics could understand, even if they're not in your discipline. One of the big components of approval is demonstrating that the amount of work your sabbatical project or program, the amount of work it requires is equivalent to 2 semesters of a full workload of teaching. So you need to be able to demonstrate how it's equivalent, not identical, of course, because that would be very, very difficult, but at least equivalent in some way. And I have a requirement in there where I ask for a timeline. And this is often a good way for people outside of your discipline to understand what work you're going to be doing, when and why it's equivalent. Third is the impact. Like, what is the impact of the research or scholarship? Like, does it contribute to your field, your discipline, to community, organizations? So you need to be able to demonstrate impact. And one good question to ask is, if I didn't do this work, would it matter? And if it wouldn't matter, then why do it? So you need to be able to be clear about the impact, the value that your sabbatical program is providing. and then feasibility. And I'll give you an example that has happened where someone wanted to do the research, the writing, the filming, and the editing of a documentary all in 1 year. And it was in multiple international sites. And I said, you cannot get that done in 1 year. It's just not feasible. And I connected them to a friend of mine who makes documentaries, and they came out with a plan of what was feasible. And then we had a plan for how they were going to complete the documentary as part of their scholarship in following years. So just because you have a big project, don't think that it isn't possible, but we just want to make sure that what you're promising, because you will be held to what you promise, that what you're promising is feasible or doable in the time frame. So where things go wrong. The writing.
Sorry, Gary, don't mean to interrupt again.
No, it's all good, Mike.
Can you just clarify what you mean by saying you'll be held accountable? What does that mean?
So if you promise to write 2 journal articles, then you need to have 2 journal articles submitted. Now, I recognize that the peer review committee is likely going to take longer than the timeline of your sabbatical to actually get it published, but at least to show that you've submitted the 2 journal articles for review. So if you say I'm going to submit 2 journal articles, then that's what you need to get done before the end of your sabbatical.
And like, I mean, say like, for example, I plan on writing a book and the book is 3/4 of the way done at the end of the sabbatical instead of completely done. I mean, that's still a significant amount of work. What does it mean if you don't achieve your goals that you set out?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So, and sometimes there's things beyond your control that come up during a sabbatical. It could be personal issues. It could be just the partners you're working with. Lots of different things can go wrong, or, maybe not go according to plan. I'm really collaborative, and, you get to the end and you have to write your sabbatical report and say, this is what I've completed, and, I'm submitting what I've got. But you go, it's not quite done. So then you and I would sit down and go, okay, what's a reasonable plan to get this done? When can you how can you possibly get this done? It could be in 4 months, it could be in 8 months, but we would talk about that and come up with a timeline that you would agree to, that it is reasonable.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So where things go wrong, it's when it's not clear. A lot of times we send proposals back to applicants just for clarification. Sometimes it's not sure where the sabbatical program fits into one of the streams. And I'm happy to work with you ahead of time, say over the next 4 or 6 months on your proposal and on all aspects of it. And this goes back to Jerry's question, perhaps, this idea of it's one project only. So it's not it's not a time where you're going to do 4 or 5 little projects unless you can say, hey, I'm going to do these little projects and it fits into this one book. That might be different, because then you could just say these are pieces that fit into a larger project. But generally, we're not looking for you to do a bunch of different small unrelated projects. We want something that is substantial.
Hi, Gary.
Hi there. Sorry,
just a question for you. I think a lot of us in this meeting are hired at UFE 2019 because I recognize some of the people from teaching learning classes we took together.
Yeah.
Is this the right time for us to apply this year for basically 2025, starting like September, or what's the timeline for us?
Well, first, yeah. So if you've already right now you've completed 6 years of service already, and you've got 1 more year of service to go before you're eligible for your sabbatical. Now is the time to apply if you want to start your sabbatical in September 2025.
So 2019 we started. This is the year we apply for, starting September 25, right?
I think you're too early. Like, I don't think you get a sabbatical in 2025. Let me just do so if you started in
basically August 2019 started.
Yeah, so then,
So it's going to be 2026 to apply.
yeah, it's gonna be 2026 is when you're gonna start your sabbatical.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I
Yeah,
need to apply next year basically for that.
that's correct.
Thank you so
Gary,
much.
are you sure about that? 19, 20, 20, 21, 21, 22, 22, 22, 23, 23, 24. That's 5 years. And we have this year, which is 6, and then we're applying this year for next year. For the 2025, 20, for the 25, 26, 24. Yeah. I think
No,
it's,
no.
is
20
it 7 years of service, or is it on our 7th year of service? I guess
It
is the
is
question.
7 years of service, and you get the
Oh.
8th year of sabbatical.
Oh, I think, okay. Okay, good to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the same question when I was applying. For my own. Okay, other areas where things go wrong, it's sometimes activities or the timeline don't always suit the time requested for the sabbatical. And this is maybe you've got a really long project, but still bring your project to me. I'm happy to work with you on that and see if we can come up with a proposal that will work. Sometimes the committee members have questions about the details. Maybe it's just not clear to them. Maybe they're not familiar with your discipline, so they're not sure necessarily what you're writing about. You need to be specific about what your objectives are and what your outputs are going to be. So the difference between an outcome and an output. An outcome is I'm going to make the world a better place, and my output is going to be a paper or a workshop or something like that, something tangible. And then don't assume that the reviewers of the application understand what it is you're writing about. So remember, you're going to be writing for that generalist audience. None of these would kill your proposal. It would just mean that it might take us a review or two, some edits and revisions. Oops. So you need to write a project summary. This project summary is helpful for the reviewers because they can see very quickly kind of the big picture of what it is you're trying to do. Clear statement of purpose, why it's important, the relevance, and the value of the project. It could be how does it advance knowledge, or what does it add to our knowledge, and provide a rationale. Start soon rather than later. So do your prep work, especially if you're going to need partners or you're not sure exactly how you're going to get some work done. Like maybe you're going to have to look for funding. We've had people who've done their research, their sabbatical programs all over the world. So make sure you've got many of these things in order.
Gary?
Yes.
Yeah, Jerry here. While you're on the subject of international, just a quick question. Are your PD funds, are you eligible for your PD funds during that year if you want to do an international or not?
Yes, you are.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thanks.
Mayan had a good question. You were paid at 90% of your wages while you were on sabbatical. And then the other piece to that is you have the option of having the university withhold another 10%, which you can then use for sabbatical expenses. But the nice thing about it is then it's not taxed. So you're saving the tax on that 10% that you're going to use for expenses. Erwin.
If so, I'm just interested in the two areas. I understand that you're paid at 90%, but when you look at your earlier statement about it's got to be equivalent to the full 2 semesters, is that counterbalanced in the sense that it's really got to be equivalent to like 90% of a full teaching load or full year of work, or is there some other calculation that's made?
No, the idea is that you're not required to do any service.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, some people still do. That's their choice, but they're not required to do any service while they're on sabbatical. This summer is a good time to think a little bit about your sabbatical plan. Let it roll around in your head as you're maybe having a cool drink on the patio this summer. Take the time to talk to some of your colleagues and say, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Get some feedback from them, and maybe they'll give you insight or provide other ideas or options for you. And then make sure you read the questions on the application and answer the question. This is not a writing exercise such as writing a book chapter or prose or an essay. Really, you're just answering questions so the review committee can check off the boxes saying, yep, this is done, met that requirement. So don't worry too much about writing works of art. Make sure that you are clear about your objectives. So it might be that here's my research question, and here's the 4 steps or objectives it's going to take to get to that answer, to answer my research question. If you're not doing research, then your objectives might be differently. It'll be like, okay, I'm getting a credential, but along the way, I'm going to complete these certificates which add up to their credential. So just be clear about what your objectives are on the way to fulfilling your sabbatical plan. So I've got a couple slides here on writing objectives to review. I'm sure this is all familiar to all of you as you went through your PhDs or your masters, but if you want some feedback on your objectives, I'm happy to do that with you on a one-on-one basis. Identify the design and work plan. And this is where you kind of get that opportunity maybe this summer when you start thinking about what you're going to write for your sabbatical plan. You start putting, this is what I like to do. I like to get a blank piece of paper and I draw almost like a diagram with arrows. So I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. This will build into that. And I find that really useful for organizing the work and making sure I'm not missing any important steps. And then think about how you're going to disseminate your results. It might be a very conventional journal article or book, but it might also be workshops or training or resources that you're creating for different groups. We've had lots of people who have provided training resources for not NGOs and not-for-profits. So it depends what your program of work is for your sabbatical. Go back, sorry, the timeline. Again, this is really valuable. It doesn't have to be overly specific, but it does help the review committee to see what it is you're planning when. So this is when you're going to be applying for ethics. This is when you're going to be going out and interviewing people. This is time for analysis. And then you can start seeing, oh, you know what, I actually need more time here. And then when you're in the midst of your program, you should be able to go back and say, I'm on track or I'm falling behind. Even better if you could say, hey, I'm ahead of the game here and there's some other things I can do that you really want to get done. When you're writing, think about the connections to your field or the discipline, maybe to the community or the university. That really builds in this idea of relevance. Why are you doing it? And then be very clear about the outputs, the outcomes. What is it that you're going to be producing, the tangible pieces? When you apply, and this is the last year we're going to be using it, I hope, is the Romeo system. So you will be able to submit it as PDFs, and you can submit it through the Romeo system, which is on the UFE Research website. Take the time to review the handbook, and also note that deadlines for the process of getting your sabbatical proposal approved start in September. such as meeting with maybe during a department meeting and having people provide feedback to your proposal. You will be given time to revise your proposal after sending it to the dean. And then you need to submit it online for the dean to check in to Romeo and say, yes, I support, or I do not support this proposal. So we just need the dean at the end to be able to say, yes, we support the proposal. And that's why if you can, I think it's in October, you send it to the dean. I've got the timeline on the next slide, but then you've got a month to make the revisions that the dean is asking for. Please get your application in on time. Some years we have as many as 25 sabbatical applications, and we need to give the reviewers time to review them all. So department feedback, September 30th, or September, department head or director feedback, September 30th, October 16th, the dean's review and feedback. And then November 15th, we need that in to Romeo. And then the dean has 2 weeks to say whether they support the proposal or not. We see who all applies, and then we try to get a review committee with the necessary expertise to review the proposals. Sometimes it can be very difficult, but we've had a couple of years where we had a lot of people in trades applying, and so we ended up trying to get at least one person from trades on the committee. The review process occurs in January and February, and if the review committee wants more details or clarification, then I'll be coming back to you probably before the end of January, giving you a couple of weeks to make the adjustments, and then it goes back to the committee again in February. We want to be able to send the approval before the end of February to the HR and the departments. So get your proposal approved, and maybe in May or June, you decide, I can't actually go on sabbatical. Something's fallen through, life has changed, it's not a good time to do it. That's fine. We can either postpone or defer, and I'll explain the difference in a minute, your sabbatical at that time. There's a form for it online. You have to contact your dean, and then it comes to me, and I'm mostly there just for clarification and then to track the change. If during your sabbatical you need to make changes, and it could be this, so this is an example that actually happened. Someone had a project with a sports-based not-for-profit, and in September of their sabbatical year, the not-for-profit folded and disbanded. They no longer had a project. So they came back to me. We came up with a new project, reviewed it, got it approved, and they carried on. They made changes. It could be maybe in January or February, you go, you know what, this has just exploded. It's much bigger than I expected. And so, come to me early and I will help you with any revisions or changes. Just like Mike Corman mentioned earlier, if you don't complete what you promised to complete, well, let's create a plan and let's do it early. I'm here to be supportive, not policing what you're doing. And let's make sure that you can go through your sabbatical without too much stress or strain. The difference between postponement and deferral. So this is something that is more clearly defined within the collective agreement. If you are a department head and you say, I don't want to take my sabbatical now because the department needs me to be department head for one more year, or maybe there's 2 of you in the same department that are due for your sabbatical, but the department can't really afford to have both of you gone at the same time, then the department and the applicant decide who's going to take their sabbatical as planned and who is going to defer it for 1 year. So in this case, a deferral refers to pushing the sabbatical time forward for the benefit of the university. In this case, when you're following sabbatical, the original timeline of your ensuing sabbatical is not pushed forward. You only have to work then 6 years of service before the next sabbatical instead of 7, because you deferred the timing of your sabbatical for the benefit of the university. However, if you decide that you want to postpone your sabbatical for your own reasons, your own purpose, maybe you can't afford the 90% instead of 100, then that's a postponement, and your ensuing sabbatical will still be 7 years of service after the end of your first sabbatical. Erwin.
So I may have this wrong, but I understand that by policy, you can also start your sabbatical in January instead of September.
That's
And
correct.
I think I heard that if you choose to start in January, moving forward, all of your subsequent sabbaticals will also must start in January. But if you defer from September to January because of departmental need, does that rule still apply, or your subsequent sabbatical could start in September?
Yeah, your subsequent sabbatical would still be on the original timeline.
Okay.
So yeah, you could start one for, department purposes in January, and then 7 years of service after that, you would start in September if you wished.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Amir.
Hi, Gary. I have a question about the length of sabbatical. I've seen, for example, in Waterloo that faculties, they break it into 2 sabbaticals. I mean, 2 6-months. Do we have something like that here at UFV?
No, we don't have that right now. Just in this new collective agreement, or most recent collective agreement, you have an option for a 4-month sabbatical, but not multiple 4 months within the sabbatical year.
So it means if I go for 4 months, I'm gonna lose the 8 month, or
That's
what?
correct.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
why people will do that?
Some people, maybe for financial reasons, maybe because they just want a credential that only takes 4 months. They've been asking for a 4-month sabbatical. Now, if you would like 2 6-month sabbaticals within the same year, I think that's something that could come forward through the collective bargaining process. I don't see how the university would be against it, but I think that it would be great if that's something that people would like, that if we get that included in the next round of bargaining.
The rationale that I've seen in Waterloo was, if a faculty is away for 1 full year, considering the departmental needs or supervision of students, sometimes, they have multiple projects, multiple commitments to different industry partners. So they argue that I need, let's say, 6 months to go and refresh, research, those sort of things, but I get my the remaining, the next 6 months in 2-3 years within the same 6 years of wait time for the next full sabbatical. That's what I've seen quite common there.
Yeah, so that doesn't fit perfectly with our system, but if you think you've got something like that, set up a time to talk to me and we'll figure out what we can do going forward.
Sure, thank you.
You're welcome.
Gary, I also have a little confusion between 8 months and a year. Is it a full year and 8 months? And then I have another question.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I know I talk about it as if it's the same thing. And in reality, I guess it is. So the idea is that you're released from your teaching load, and most of us do our 7-course or 6-course teaching load, depending on your department, over the fall and winter semesters. So after that, you have almost 2 months of professional development time, and then your faculty vacation. So getting 8 months release from teaching, and then with your professional development vacation, that works out to a year. But the sabbatical itself is really just the release from teaching and service.
But there wouldn't be any changes in your monthly salaries in terms of 90% of it, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's 90% for the year.
Okay, my other question was if you mentioned if your department says they need you for, let's say, longer, they can't release you this, let's say 2026. Then it pushes another 6 years apart, or let's say if they say they need you one more year in this position before they can release you, can you not go into a 2027?
So
A year
yeah,
after that?
if it's the department, so just say you've worked your 7 years and you're due for your sabbatical in your 8th year, but the department asks you to continue teaching in the 8th year.
Mhm.
So then you would get your sabbatical after that, but you'd only have to teach another 6 years before you're eligible for your next sabbatical. Because you deferred it for the department's purposes, university's benefit.
Okay, so is that a sort of a formula? So if they need you 2 more years, then you go 5 years after that?
That's correct. Yeah, we would
Okay.
like to limit it. We don't like to defer more than 2 years, but we have done it, especially say for department head roles.
Okay, thank you.
And you may know right now that the department wants you to defer your sabbatical. Under the current rules, you're still supposed to apply for your sabbatical. But I know that it could mean that you're trying to write a sabbatical program for 2 or 3 years in advance. If that's the case, if you already know when it's time to write your sabbatical, come see me and we'll make sure that we simplify the process.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So after you've completed your sabbatical, there is a template for your sabbatical report, and a lot of it is cut and paste from your proposal, and then just a short report on what you accomplished, along with the copy of your outputs, if that's reasonable, or a link to your outputs. And your sabbatical report is due October 31st after your sabbatical is ended. That report is reviewed by the dean and myself. And then there's usually only a follow-up if you've not completed your outcomes or your outputs. And in that case, I would hope that you would have come to me sooner, and we would be able to provide your a plan for completion of the outputs along with your sabbatical report. So if you have questions, you can email myself or Tracy Morrison. We have some people who have agreed to talk to anyone who has questions, and I'm sure there's others. You can talk to people in your department. There's resources online. Yeah, and I invite you to ask any more questions you might have.
Gary, there's one question about medical leave. If you took a medical leave in your 7 years, does this affect when you can take your sabbatical?
So yeah, so I'm not going to give a definitive answer because it depends on the medical leave, perhaps. I'm not sure. Like if it's a mat leave, definitely that does not push your it's considered a year of service while you're on mat leave. If it's for a health reason, then I'm going to defer that to HR because I don't actually make those decisions. And I'm happy to work with you on that. Brooke, payback following sabbatical. Is this, I'm not sure what this means. Is this
Hi, Gary. I mean the 2 years full-time requirement to continue to work
right
after the sabbatical's over.
Yeah, so yeah, once your sabbatical is completed, then you're required to work 2 years. Or now that we have 4-month sabbaticals, or 1 semester sabbaticals, you need to work for twice the time that you were on leave, sabbatical leave for. And that's in Article 24.7 of the collective agreement.
And then if you don't do that, what has to be paid back? The
So
the salary incurred, or like
yeah,
would
the
it also?
salary, yeah, so let's just say roughly, don't take this as gospel, but roughly, uh, say you only worked, you had a 1-year sabbatical and you worked 1 more year and then retired or quit. So you'd only worked half of the time that instead of the full amount. So 1 year instead of 2, then you would have to pay back 50%
Of the salary?
of the salary.
Yeah. What would happen with all the benefits and everything that came along with that, those 2 years, the sabbatical year and the 1 year that you worked?
Yeah, so that would be an HR question.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's a good question for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Erwin.
So obviously I haven't looked at this year's application, so I apologize. But the last time I applied for a sabbatical, there was a question on the application about what have you done in the 12 months leading up to your sabbatical? And I wonder if you can speak to if that's still there, and if it is, what is sort of the expectation of what you will do to help you with your sabbatical in the 12 months prior to beginning your sabbatical?
Yeah, so what this is referring to is the idea that you need to just demonstrate that you're actually going to be ready to start your sabbatical activities at the start of your sabbatical. So it's really going to vary greatly. If you've got partners you need to work with, then, do you have commitments from them that they're going to work with you? Some people go and work with a research center somewhere else. So have they actually set up that relationship? Give you an example. Someone had a great plan to work. I won't say the country, but to work in another country with a research center. It looked all good, but when it came time to do it, the research center refused because they hadn't actually reached out to them before their sabbatical started, and to set up the relationship. So it's just this idea that, are you ready to go? Ready to start your sabbatical activities when you're finally September 1st of your sabbatical year opens up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Amir.
Gary, another question. I've seen, for example, when I was in Waterloo, faculties who were visitor, they were at Waterloo for sabbatical. They could teach, they could get involved in a lot of researches that there was a monetary incentive to get involved more. Essentially, they were being paid during the sabbatical at the destination. Does any payment that you receive outside UFE will affect the UFE payment, or they are separate, really no constraints here?
Yeah, so you're not allowed to, you would lose your pay at UFE if you were to go and work at another university.
No, I mean, let's say, I give you a clear example. We had a faculty on sabbatical in our lab in Waterloo, and then the department needs someone to teach a course in Waterloo. He wasn't a faculty at Waterloo, he was on sabbatical at Waterloo, and he got the position and he taught the course, and the Waterloo paid him. I don't know what was the complication in terms of the payment he would receive from the original university that he was assigned to, but I'm just curious here at UFE, what's the the arrangement?
Yeah, you're not supposed to work for any pay during your sabbatical year.
Even if you're outside the country, another research center.
That's correct.
Okay. On another note, you've
Now,
mentioned.
can I just modify that a little bit, Amir? Or
Yes.
just, if there, it might be that you apply to a research center or an institute and they have a fellowship to help cover some of your costs, say your flight or, some living expenses. That would be fine, but it would need to be like a fellowship and not payment for services.
Okay, got you. In terms of payback, you've mentioned that's twice. If someone goes for one semester leave for sabbatical, let's say fall semester,
Right.
so it means that they need to come back for 2 more semesters, effectively winter and summer semester. Am I correct?
If they're teaching in the summer, if they're teaching a full load in the summer, yes,
But what if they don't teach full load in summer?
then they would have to do the fall semester. So they would have to do 2 semesters of teaching.
Okay, another question. Maybe it's my misunderstanding. My understanding was that sabbatical is like we've already worked towards sabbatical year, the 90% salary, essentially. Over the 6 years before going for sabbatical, part of my salary has been already deducted so that I will be paid for that year of sabbatical. But with this payback following sabbatical, it looks like it's not the case necessarily.
That's correct. It's not because the university hasn't deducted 90%, the equivalent of 90%. So yeah, and this is a collective agreement issue and HR, and they can answer that best.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Yeah, I've got a quick follow-up on the Amir question.
Sure.
So is it the case that, so for argument's sake, a faculty member applies for sabbatical and says they're going to do A, B, and C, and it gets approved, that at the end of the sabbatical, they have completed A, B, and C, but they are not allowed to do other work in that sabbatical year as well?
Yeah, you're not supposed to, well, I think what we're trying to do is trying to stop, we're not wanting people to go and take teaching jobs at other universities during that time.
I understand that, but what if there's a research opportunity to collaborate on a project, and again, you will get paid, but you still complete all the requirements that you set out in your sabbatical? That would be frowned upon. You can only work on your sabbatical work in that sabbatical year.
That's how it's written in the collective agreement.
Okay.
I also want to elaborate on that, Gary, if that's okay.
Sure.
I have also a casual position at the hospital as a registered nurse, and I have like a requirement of working 400 hours a year to keep that casual position. Is that okay to continue that? Because otherwise I would lose that seniority and everything in the hospital.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand your question, and it's something that you're doing while you're at UFE. So I think that, again, that would be an HR question. So I suggest you talk to Christina Stam or Jason Jones, I think his name is, or in HR. They would be able to answer that question better than I would.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I do encourage you to ask it, because I just don't want to lead you the wrong way.
Gary, I have a quick question. What happens if we don't take our sabbatical? Can you speak to that? We just work as normal?
Yeah, so if you decide not to take your sabbatical, there isn't any penalty, other than really it's because you're essentially postponing your sabbatical for your own reasons or purposes. So when you do take your sabbatical, it's still 7 years of service after the completion of when you completed your sabbatical before you get your next one.
Hey Gary, related to the previous questions about working, but I just want clarification on this. So if I want to teach overload during my sabbatical year, can I do it? And if I can I only do it during the summer?
No, you're not able to teach any sections.
No overload?
No, no. Not during your sabbatical.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Amir, is your hand?
Yes, yeah,
okay?
Gary, I know you're referring us to HR and the collective agreement, but I'm just curious. I've seen the common practices, for example, when I was at Ryerson, faculties would go to Samsung Research Center and they would receive their salary from Ryerson. At the same time, Samsung Research Center would pay them because of, you know, extensive work that they were doing. And that would enable those faculty to establish those excellent connection with industry. And when they came back to Ryerson, they had established relations. They would bring now research projects, grants, really enabling faculty. But what I'm trying to get at is that this collective agreement that UFV is following is a college-based collective agreement, is a university-based collective agreement when it comes to the sabbatical, because it looks like quite restrictive when it comes to all of these constraints attached to the sabbatical, the flexibility, all of that. I haven't applied. I'm not eligible this year, but I'm just curious. And I've seen in our school, some faculties, they just skipped it. Maybe that's the reason, because it's too restrictive. Any insight or any background that you have about the collective agreement, who negotiated those items, really?
Right. So these clauses that we're referring to in the collective agreement, they were in place when I took my last sabbatical in 2015. So I don't know when they came in. I just wasn't looking at it previous to that, so I don't know their origin. But I know that if you want to change to this, then it is something that has to go through the collective agreement or through bargaining. I'm not able to. Yeah, I'm held to HR.
Yeah, I understand.
What's written. Yeah.
But you, as a
sorry.
Associate Vice President of Research, I think the reason that we bring it up, I at least my intention of bringing up this example is that you, as an advocate of the faculty, you know that what are the common practices other universities are following, and UFVs looks like quite restrictive when they go for collective agreement bargaining. You would be support of some changes so that enables faculties to consider go for sabbatical, establish those relationships, come back and empower and enable UFV research, essentially. That's the pattern that I've seen, honestly, working out. Faculty going for that because they have incentive, and it's quite an extensive work to get that position. It's not like everyone gets it, and then the connections that they make to those industry partners enables them to foster their research after they came back to their universities.
Yeah, so what I suggest is you work through from the union side, and I will work through from the management side. How's that?
Thank you very much. I appreciate your support. You're a great advocate, and I'm very much thankful of all of your support. I just wanted to provide you some of the stuff that goes back in mind. I'm gonna definitely reach out to union and see what's going on there. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah, Roseanne, sorry, I just saw your question, and then now I see your hand.
Oh, it was the same question. And just a gentle note, as an Indigenous faculty member, we no longer call that institution Ryerson. It has been changed to Toronto Metropolitan University. And we're just on the heels of Aboriginal or Indigenous Peoples Day that's coming up in next week. So just a gentle reminder on.
Sure, thank you. I apologize. I should have mentioned Toronto Metropolitan University. Thank you.
Thank you, Roseanne.
And it may be that I come in and we can have a longer discussion around that question.
Sorry, I can barely hear you, but I see your question is, can I speak to the Indigenous stream? Do you have something specific you're curious about?
Just any of it.
Okay, so I know of someone who came to me earlier this week, and they said that their situation, they're kind of disconnected from their community, and they're wanting to reconnect and learn customs and processes and protocols. And so they're going to spend a 4-month sabbatical reconnecting with their community. So they're going to get training or teachings that they can then apply to their own personal lives, as well as to their work here at UFE. I think that the kind of training that we're looking at in streams 7 and 8, I believe that it can be something that is highly formalized, but it could also be something that is less formal. It just need to have some kind of a plan, a program, and say an agreement or a letter of support saying, yes, this is, if it's an informal process, saying, yeah, this is what we're planning on doing during this time period. So that wanting to make sure that we're incorporating both the very formalized systems of teaching and training, but also the less formal structures. Is that helpful?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if there aren't any more questions, I thank everyone for your excellent questions. We will have this video up online as quick as we can. And feel free to email me at any time with your questions, and I'll do my best to get back to you promptly. Thank you, everyone.